15 March 44 BC, Rome, a city that had conquered almost the entire known world. But on this day, the most powerful man in the Roman Republic would walk into the Senate and never walk out alive. Again, Julius Caesar had survived wars, betrayals, uprisings, and assassination attempts. He defeated the armies of Gaul, crushed his enemies in civil war. He became a man some called the savior of Rome, while others feared he would become its tyrant. But in March of 44 BC, dozens of senators decided Caesar had become too dangerous, and so they planned a murder that would change history forever. This is the story of the final hours of Julius Caesar. Caesar's rise to power. By the time of his death, Caesar was no ordinary politician. He had concentrated almost absolute power in his hands. After winning the civil war, he was declared dictator for life. His statues stood beside those of the gods. His face was stamped onto Roman coins. To many Romans, this looked like the end of the Republic. The senators feared that Caesar would soon crown himself king. And in Rome, the word king inspired fear. Romans had hated monarchy ever since their ancient kings were overthrown centuries earlier. That is why a conspiracy began forming around Caesar. The conspirators among the conspirators were powerful senators. Some had once been Caesar's friends. Others owed their entire careers to him. The leading figures were Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius Longinus. Brutus shocked many Romans the most. Caesar trusted him deeply. Rumors even claimed Caesar treated him almost like a son. But Brutus believed he was saving the Republic. At least, that is how he justified joining the conspiracy. The plan was simple: kill Caesar during a meeting of the Senate. The omens ancient historians claimed strange signs appeared before Caesar's death. There were reports of unnatural events, sacrificial animals found without hearts, prophets warning the dictator of danger. The most famous warning was, "Beware the Ides of March." According to legend, a seer told Caesar that the middle of March would bring his downfall. Even Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, begged him not to go to the Senate. Ancient writers claimed she had a terrifying dream in which Caesar's statue poured blood. On the morning of March 15th, Caesar hesitated. Some sources say he nearly decided to stay home, but the conspirators convinced him to attend, and so Caesar made his way to the Senate. The final walk that day, the Senate session was not held in its usual building. Instead, it took place inside the theater of Pompey. The irony was impossible to ignore. Pompey had once been Caesar's greatest rival. Now a statue of Pompey would witness the events that would enter history forever. Caesar arrived with little protection. He did not expect an attack. As he entered the chamber, senators surrounded him under the pretense of presenting a petition. One conspirator grabbed Caesar's toga. That was the signal. Within seconds, knives appeared. The assassination. The first strike came from Publius Servilius Casca, but the blow was clumsy. Caesar tried to fight back. Some accounts claim he even grabbed the attacker's arm. But there were too many conspirators. They stabbed him again and again. Panic erupted throughout the chamber. Some senators fled. Others froze in horror. Ancient historians later wrote that Caesar suffered more than 20 stab wounds, but only one was likely fatal. The most famous moment involved Brutus. According to later accounts, when Caesar saw Brutus among the assassins, he said, "You too, Brutus?" However, modern historians debate whether he actually spoke those words. It is possible Caesar said nothing at all before dying. At last, he collapsed beneath the statue of Pompey. The man who had conquered vast territories and reshaped the destiny of Rome died on the Senate floor, at the hands of his own allies. After the murder, the conspirators believed the people would support them after Caesar's death. They expected Rome to welcome them as liberators. Instead, the opposite happened. Caesar's assassination threw the city into chaos. Fear spread through Rome. When Mark Antony spoke at Caesar's funeral, the crowd erupted in fury. Romans began turning against the conspirators. Rather than saving the Republic, the assassination triggered another civil war. A few years later, Caesar's adopted son, Augustus, then known as Octavian, would destroy his enemies and become the first emperor of Rome. And the Roman Republic would effectively cease to exist. Conclusion: the conspirators believed they were killing a tyrant, but their actions changed history in ways they never expected. The death of Julius Caesar became one of the most famous political assassinations in human history. Even more than 2,000 years later, the Ides of March remain a symbol of betrayal, power, and the fall of great men. And perhaps the greatest question still remains unanswered. Was Caesar the savior of Rome or the man who destroyed the Republic?